All right, everybody. So you already know what it is. It's Will with the Inspired Geeks Crew, but today is a very special episode. We got a special guest, Shawn Campbell. He's an amazing composer. He works in the video game industry and music industry. We're gonna chat with him, but I do want to let my guys, Willie and John, just say hello.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's good? Good morning. What's popping?
Excellent, excellent. And Shawn, we'll just go ahead and let you introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, hey guys, yeah, thrilled to be here. Yeah, thank you again for having me on here. Yeah, my name is Sean, and I am a video game composer. I've worked in film and television as well, but now I'm primarily focusing on video games. And yeah, really happy to be here to talk about what I do and just like share in the nerddom together. So thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So since you are our guest, the first guest we had in quite a while, could you just kind of tell us about your background in music and video games and how you kind of got to where you are?
Sure, man. Yeah. I mean, like, I can start at the beginning, and like say, I grew up kind of on a remote ranch and like kind of came out of the womb singing, as my mom said. Like, I used to sing myself to sleep in the crib. So music has been a huge part of my life. But I didn't think I would make a career out of it until maybe 5 or 6 years ago, honestly. I was going to school for audio engineering. Originally, I had started off like in a church background, started off doing worship music, wanting to be a worship pastor, and that just wasn't paying the bills at the end of the day. So I decided, like, I still want to be in the music industry, and decided audio engineering would be a great way. Like, I love being in the studio, love working with other artists, I love recording. So started doing that, and then through that school that I went to in Nashville called the Blackbird Academy. It's a studio run by Martine McBride and her husband. It's real hands-on, like, let's like get into the ditches. Like, if you want to learn how to record, like the best way to learn is by doing records, by making records and recording people. I ended up meeting some people through that were looking for audio interns to go work with Hans Zimmer. And so they asked our class, like, hey, any of you want to move to LA and go intern with Hans Zimmer? And I was like, me, man, like right away. Like, I'm like, I will go. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going out there. So that's how I ended up going out there, and learning from Hans Zimmer and like kind of his whole cadre of people there. Like, he has this huge building that's just filled with composers. And the beauty of that internship is, in between doing normal stuff, you run coffee and do dishes and all the normal stuff. It's sort of an open door policy there. So like, if the door is open, you could just go knock and be, hey, mind if I sit in with you and just like watch you work? Or can I ask you some questions about what you do? And so I got to meet a lot of really cool people in that industry that were more than happy to like turn the chair around and be like, yeah, let me show you what I do. Like, I'm working on this History Channel show right now, or, hey, we're working on Dunkirk right now. You want to sit in and watch how we mix this? So I got to work while I was there, I got to work on Wonder Woman and Dunkirk, which were the two big projects being worked on at the time. And it was a thrilling experience. And so I caught the bug from then on, and it's just been, a lot of ups and downs since then. But I've always loved video game music. And so I just recently finished a class with Jason Graves, who did the music for Dead Space, Tomb Raider. Just recently finished a game called No Rest for the Wicked. And so getting to learn from him in kind of a smaller environment and like really learn, like how the sausage is made behind the scenes with video game music has been awesome. And since then, I've joined a team, and now I'm doing music and sound design for our own little studio called Can't Afford Studios, because we're all mostly either unemployed or broke. So I love video games so much that, like, even if we don't have a studio, this is still what we're going to be doing. But we love doing it, and we love what we do. So yeah, that's sort of my background. That's where I come from. But
That's amazing.
yeah,
Word. That's fire for real. Like, your resume, your rap sheet is on point, man. Shout out to Sean.
Oh, thank you guys.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
seriously.
I feel incredibly lucky, honestly. It's just been like a Forrest Gump kind of journey. I feel like stumbling into all these amazing people and amazing opportunities. So
Yeah, man,
yeah.
that's incredible. And speaking of video games, I guess the first thing, a question for all of us too. And I know, Sean, you asked us as well, like, what was the first video game where the music hooked you? I know I got my answers, but I'll let you go first.
All right, yeah, cool. Man, for me, it's like it's all of Grant Kirkhope's games. But like it was Diddy Kong Racing. That was a big one for me. That wasn't Grant Kirkhope, I don't think, but Diddy Kong Racing had just like some absolute banger tracks in there that I loved. I can like still hum to this day. Like I still hear the menu music in my head. But Grant Kirkhope, like especially Banjo Kazooie,
Come on.
that's where I really caught the bug. And everyone knows, everyone's favorite, GoldenEye 007, like on Nintendo 64. That was, we still hear the menu music we were talking about earlier. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's on our phones, it's in our memories. Like it's just literally golden. Yeah. So that's where it started for me. That's where the bug hit. And I was like, oh yeah, I could do this. I want to do this for a living. So yeah.
I love that answer. That's inspirational right now. I love hearing the story of how people found their like true passion and like what they want to work towards when it comes to their niche. Like that's inspiring, bro. Like I love that.
Absolutely, yeah. What about you guys? What's the earliest video game memory you guys have like attached to music?
Jojo, you want to go?
You go ahead first.
I got. He's like, I need time to think.
Yeah.
Like a lot of options, right? Yeah.
Oh,
Ray
wow.
trying to throw it on you real quick. I got some.
Yeah.
I think because I know we talked before we started recording. I believe Sonic. It's between Sonic 3 and Streets of Rage. Like the first time it hit, and I was like, all right, this is more than video game music. Like this deserves its own genre. This should be like heralded the same way music on the radio is. You know what I'm saying? It was definitely just finding out because I've always been a big Michael Jackson fan. So just hearing those elements and like the majority of those levels, I was like, these are groovy. I could dance to these songs. I love this. And it just makes the level even better playing through it, especially at the high speeds with Sonic. But Streets of Rage, I know we talked about Yuzo Koshiro. Like he's just a legend in his own. Like all that deep 90s house music and all the levels just get you hyped and pumped to like beat the game, as hard as it may be sometimes. And then another one that truly stuck with me, and to this day I think is like top tier, is like Eureka Studio. They made like Streets of Rage, the EX series, and Streets of Rage EX3 has by far one of the greatest soundtracks to like bar for bar, level for level. Like me and Jojo still joke about that soundtrack and just the normal sound effects of those games, just love them to this day. I have nothing but great memories. But just like Sean said, man, like the GoldenEye memories, like forget it. Like the pause menu goes way too hard. Like that's crazy. Your pause menu, even like Super Mario 64, the main menu before you even press start to like jump into the hub world. I'm like, that's so relaxing and peaceful. Kirby, I'm just like, yeah. The list goes on and on. But definitely, before I start rambling, because video games and music, this is what y'all do to me. Definitely first time would be between Streets of Rage and Sonic 3.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Excellent choices, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me too is Streets of Rage, the second one. That was the first one that I got introduced to.
Fire.
On Sega. And that was one of the games that I instantly got hooked on, and I wanted to play nonstop. But the thing was, like, my family couldn't afford, Sega, all that kind of stuff. So it was like I would have to like go over to my friend's house to play it, or go to my family's house to play it.
Yeah.
The first memory of it, I believe, was in Baltimore at my aunt and uncle's house. Somebody, I guess nobody was like playing the Sega Genesis at that time. So it was kind of collecting dust, and I saw it when I went upstairs, and I was like, what's this? So I just popped it in. And I was like, oh my gosh, man. I was like, what is this? This is amazing. So that's one of the games that has stuck with me for generations, man. Another one, when I got first introduced to the Super Nintendo was Mega Man X. Mega Man X was top tier, bro. Like, All I can hear right now is the guitar in the background of my head, man. All those levels. It's just one of those games that I just gravitated to as a kid. And my last one, I would probably say is Tekken 3.
Oh, come on.
Tekken 3 is my all-time favorite video game. With the music, the gameplay, everything. But I memorized a lot of like martial laws stage.
Yes.
I just said that.
Come
That's all
on.
I hear. And I'm like, how did y'all come up with this stuff? Like, and I guess that's my next question too, is like, what makes a good composer? And like, what are the challenges that goes into it?
Man, yeah, that is an excellent question. I mean, it's hard. I think a lot of people forget that it's like a very multidisciplinary like job. Like music is one aspect of it for sure, but as one of my music mentors said, it's also mostly you're doing a lot of business actually too. Like you be a good business person, like marketing, social media, all of that is really important. Like, because you can write really, really good music, but if nobody's around to hear it, you're not going to get hired. You're not going to, get your music out there to the world where it belongs, which is a struggle, I know, because like a lot of composers that I know are, sort of like similar to me. We're a little introverted. We love being in our studios. It's like I'm very comfortable in my space with me and my cats, and like I just love writing. But then I have to remember, it's like, oh, right, I need to remember to share this too. Like I can't forget, because if nobody's listening to it, then yeah, you don't pay the bills.
Right.
So I think that's like one challenge. I think a lot of composers that are just starting out, especially, it can seem a little daunting at first. But I've also been fortunate enough to have like people come into my life that have like helped me kind of, sort of taught me like kind of the basics of social media, and taught me like, hey, here's some platforms or some different places that you can like put your music up on. I know I'm starting to like get into Twitch now, as like a big platform. And I know a lot of other musicians are starting to do that as a way to connect with their audience, which I think is super important, just as a musician in general. And I think that's sort of something that tends to get lost nowadays, in the sea of just like music is so accessible now, which is great. Like it's so easy to be a musician now, or like get started in music, I should say. But it's very difficult to become a pro, or make a living from music, just because there are so many people out there. So being able to engage with your audience, or like talk with people, or even just being able to show like, yeah, here's my process. Like, come join me while I write, this track, or like I'm working on this project today. Like, come hang out. Like, let's talk, like feel free to ask me any sort of questions, or like, let's just, a lot of times I get, ideas and advice from people that aren't musicians, like getting their perspective, an outside perspective of someone who isn't a musician, telling me, like, hey, I really like what you did here. And I would be thinking like, oh, really? Like I was getting ready to throw that out like a second ago. Like I thought that was kind of like, a trash bar, that I just like wrote. But they're like, no, that was really cool. I really like that. It's like, okay, maybe there's something here. Okay, I'm gonna keep working on it. So that's like, I feel like kind of one good side of just kind of having a more connected society nowadays is like getting that immediate feedback from your audience is super valuable. And I know like back in the day, I mean, there's the greats, like John Williams and Hans Zimmer, they wouldn't necessarily have that. They would just be talking to their director or other musicians in their circle, which, is fine. Like it works for them, obviously. Like, Star Wars is not an indie film by any stretch, in large part because of the music. So, but it's really nice, as someone who's like starting to become like kind of an up and coming composer, being able to talk to people and get some immediate feedback from your audience as you're writing something is like a really awesome experience. So I'm still kind of like in the early stages of it, but yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing, or like the hardest thing when you're just starting out, is just kind of finding your voice and figuring out like, what's my niche, who am I as a musician? And so being able to work with your audience and figure that out together is really, really cool. So yeah. Great question.
Yeah.
Word, that was my point.
Yeah, that was gonna be my follow-up question. Yeah, man, but I mean, yeah. Um, I'm just so inspired. Like, and I was gonna ask you too. I know I love video games, but also I do a lot of film work too. I gotta ask. I know we talked before, but what was the story behind you getting stuck at Hans? You said his house?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yes. This is yeah. I accidentally locked myself in Hans Zimmer's house on my very last day of internship, and this was a lot of. um, Yeah. So like, and this was a while ago, so I can fully talk about just all the dirty details and everything. No NDAs or anything. Nothing bad. But no. So it was my last day of internship. I'm like, it's like 10:30 at night. Hans is a bit of a night owl, so like a lot of the schedule kind of runs late into the early morning. He works until the sun comes up, as it were. So he was on his way back from coming off of tour, and so his security guy came up to me. He's like, "Hey, Hans is going to be here the next couple hours. Do you mind like running over to this Italian restaurant? Grab him some food. We've already ordered it and everything. You just need to run it to his house. Walk in there, just drop it off on the counter. Walk out. Bob's your uncle. Here's the gate code. Like, sweet, yeah." Fine. I've done this 1,000 times. Not at Hans's house. This is my first time, going to see the lair of the beast, as it were. So like, I'm kind of curious now. Like, let's see what what the digs are like. So I drive up there, grab the food, get up there, big iron rolling gate. It's one of those ones like you tap in the code and you're like beep, beep, boop, boop, and then it goes, like, this big rolling, thundering beast. And I was like, "Ooh, okay, nice, nice." So pull in. He has like a little like car park there in front of his garage. I park there, walk in the house, drop food off, walk back out. And then I'm like, I hop in my car and I don't see a gate code, like a keypad on the other side of the gate. The gate's already closed. It's automatic. So I'm like, okay, it's probably automatic. You just got to drive up to it and it should open and, we'll get out of here. It's fine. He could be here any minute. So I should probably like, make some haste, to get out of here. I pull up to the gate. Nothing happens. Thing doesn't budge an inch. And I'm like, uh-oh. So back the car up, I'm getting out. I'm like, okay, there's got to be a button or something around here. I'm like rifling through the bushes. Like, I'm not seeing anything. Now I'm starting to panic a little bit because I'm like, I don't want to be here. Like, I've seen him before. He knows my face. It's not like I'm a stranger, but also, if I had just come from a flight all the way from Germany, like nonstop, I probably wouldn't. Last thing I want to see is, some intern, crawling around my property. Like, I want to be fair to him. So I'm wandering around. I'm looking through all the bushes. I'm looking on the side of the building. I can't find anything. And I'm like, oh Lord, I know. I'm like, I'm gonna have to hop this gate and like, go to the other side, punch the key, like punch in the code, open the gate, and then sprint out of there. And so I am, at the moment, at this point, wearing all black, by the way. This is important to note. I look like a burglar, like for all intents and purposes, like the classic burglar. Like, I got the beanie on, I'm wearing a black shirt, black jeans, black shoes. Like, I look like a cat burglar. So I'm like, all right, nothing to it, man. I just got to hop this gate and, let's do this. So I hop over the gate and literally I'm like one leg over the gate, straddling it. And I see a pair of headlights coming up the driveway. And I'm like, oh no, please let this be the neighbors or something. Like, let this not be Hans,
Mm-hmm.
So I hop off the gate to not look suspicious. And I run back to my car, and I'm just like hiding my face in my hands. And I hear the gate opening. And I'm like, oh no. Please tell me Hans didn't just see me straddling his gate like some sort of lunatic, like like I don't know what I'm doing or like I don't know where I'm at, which I didn't, know what I was doing, and I didn't know where I was really either. No, sure enough, the gate opens, so I start up my car, have the headlights on, and I just see Hans walk in front of my headlights, and he's just looking at me like, dude, what are you doing? Like, didn't say a word. He just, he's a pro, so he just walked into his house and like went on it with his day, and I drove out of there. But man, when I got back to the studio, the security guard was laughing his freaking butt off, man. He was just like, He's like, I saw the whole thing on camera, man. Like I have a direct feed here. I saw you digging around the bush. He said, there's a button around the corner there. You could have just pushed, on the inside. I was like, yeah, that would have been really good to know before I went up there. Like, thanks a lot, man. I have a feeling maybe he's done this to other interns too. It's just like his way of getting through the day, maybe. But that's how I accidentally locked myself in Hans Zimmer's house, more or less. Got caught. But
I mean, that's a great story, man. Like
For real.
I know, right? Yeah, I don't think many people can say that, but
right, just that alone, not a lot of people can say that. It makes it unique. So
and thank goodness he's such a nice guy too. Like he really is just like the nicest, most humble person I've probably ever met, and will meet in the industry probably. Guy knows that like he's just one part of a machine when he works, and like he's a pro collaborator, I would call, and a huge procrastinator, like self-admitted too. So like any of you users out there or artists or anyone that struggles with procrastination, if Hans can do it and still procrastinate, so guys, you can too. It's okay. You can be successful. Yeah, but no, super nice guy. And it was such a fun time getting to work with him and meet all the people that work with him too. Because as they often say, it takes a village to really be successful. And like I got to meet some of the people, some of his tribe, that works in his village behind the scenes, like some of his assistant composers or people who help him record things. Like they're all just stellar people. So yeah, really, really great experience.
yeah, that's awesome, man. And like I told you before, prior to our meeting, I got a lot of movie tracks composed by him on my phone that I listen to in the car or working out, and people like, what's going on here? I'm like, you guys aren't, get educated, guys. Like this is great.
Right, you guys don't do squats to Interstellar soundtrack. Like I mean, like that stuff's inspiring, dude. Like when that organ comes in, like it's enough to give you one more rep. Like,
right.
That's a fact. Interstellar soundtrack will definitely have me in tears on the bench press. I ain't gonna lie.
You're like struggling to do that last rep, but you're like, worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, and I was going to ask you guys, like, being fans of music and film as well, like, what are some of the let's narrow it down even more too, like with the Marvel movies. Like Marvel movies have incredible soundtracks, but are there any Marvel soundtracks that tend to stand out to you guys?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say off the top of my head, because I got it on my phone. I was actually listening to it yesterday driving home from work. But the Infinity War soundtrack score.
Word.
And then of course Endgame, the whole final battle theme, the Avengers theme. It just gets me hyped up anytime I need a boost or I'm feeling sad. I'm like, that's one of my go-to tracks. So
good
that
pick.
Avengers Assemble hits, and you're just like,
oh my gosh.
Different.
I mean, that's the main reason why I watched that movie over so many times. Like, because I remember in 2012 when the first Avengers movie came out, I can't recollect how many times I've seen that movie. And that score, the original score, just hyped me up every single time. Like, we're getting these guys on the big screen. This is amazing, man.
Right.
Yeah, all those portals open up, and it's like everyone coming through, like
chills every time.
Every time, never ceases. Yeah,
dang, Marvel soundtrack. I feel like mine might be the first Iron Man for real. Like I think when I think of a Marvel soundtrack, at least, of course, I just have to go back into the memory banks, just music wise that stick out to me. I don't know why. I feel like just some of the rock and roll riffs of Iron Man, just Tony Stark just being flamboyant and the richest man alive, and just knowing it, throwing it in people's faces. Like, of course, in real life, I hate those kind of people, but like in the Marvel universe, Tony just does it so well, and just the music just matches his charisma, his confidence, his like showboatiness, you know what I'm saying? And just, I love when the music like matches up with the characters, like even more. I know it's not a Marvel soundtrack. I love when the music matches with what's going on screen. Like Baby Driver or like a Scott
man.
Pilgrim in certain scenes, like
Yes.
those, like oh my gosh, like that is always like a draw to me whenever I see that in a movie, and it's just like, oh, he's punching them to the beat of this song. That's amazing to me. That will always have me at the edge of my seat, and just because to me, I see that and I think of like rhythm-based video games. I'm just like, oh, it's like watching Parappa the Rapper or playing Sayonara Wild Hearts. I'm like, this is dope.
Yep. Right. Oh, so cool.
Shout out to Edgar Wright.
Yeah, right,
Yes.
dude. Edgar Wright. Yeah. Putting rhythm into your edits like is just an insane, like, I don't know why more people don't do it, but like and even if people did, I don't know if anyone could do it quite like Edgar Wright does. Like, I mean, every time, like, talk about a fingerprint, you know, like being able to see, just like if you only saw a few scenes of a movie, you can tell like, oh yeah, this is Edgar Wright. Like you can just from the rhythm of it.
Yeah, man.
Super cool. Or Guy Ritchie, same deal. Like,
oh yeah, oh
yeah,
definitely Guy
very
Ritchie.
Distinctive, like kind of style, and like I love that they like to try new things with their scores as well. You know, they try to bring in people that like kind of shake things up a little bit, or they at least like leave a little leash, because I know that can be a problem sometimes, like even in video game music too. Maybe less so. Like video game producers are definitely a lot more like, no, go nuts. Like we have a direction we want to go in. Like as long as it fits the bill with the, you know, the game we're working on, like, you know, try some new stuff. Like we got time.
Yeah.
But in film, you know, it's such a tight schedule. Like I really appreciate it when a director is like, no, like I hired you as a composer, like, you know, do your thing. Like I hired you because of you. And like, I know that can be a problem sometimes in our industry anyway, where in film and television, you know, they get the edit down and they do something like they'll use temp music. You guys probably know about this a little bit too.
Yeah.
You know, you're putting some songs in, you know, to like get the right feel before you talk to a composer, or like before you decide what music is going to go in a scene. And sometimes the directors or the producers get like totally fall in love with that particular thing, and they want you to just completely copy that one for one. And you're like, I can't do that. Like, just like, I want to do something different. Like Hans says he struggles with this too. Like some directors will come in and they actually temp score hit like movies he's about to work on with his own music. And he's like, that's my biggest like pet peeve, because he's like, I want to move on. I want to try something different. You know, like I want to do something else. Like I want to do, you know, like Sherlock Holmes again, you know, like I don't want to be just the Brahm guy, you know, like,
right.
Like every movie, it's just like, Brahm, you know, and like now that there's even like a sound library just called Brahm, like that's like the industry term now, like for the Hans Zimmer, just Brahm.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's tough. So like I want to ask you guys, like, you know, sort of like on the filmmaking side of things, like how do you keep things fresh? Like what inspires you guys, you know, or what sort of like things do you look to like not fall into the same, you know, trap of like redoing stuff you've already done? How do you keep yourself inspired and moving forward on the projects you guys work on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know for me, like especially on the filmmaking side of things, I always look at it like from a character perspective. Like for me, for example, I'll just use Superman for example. If I'm writing something like a fan fiction short film about Superman, there's always in my mind like a theme or music that like whenever they pop up on scene, I'm like, that Superman, that cue, that John Williams score that you heard back in the day, Planet Krypton, which I also have on my phone just because it's an amazing piece of music. But for me, I always kind of look at it from like if I were that character, because I always look, well, for me in general, I see life as just one big movie, and like I always joke to my friends, I'm like, you know, I wish real life had like, you know, the WWE theme songs, like whenever we're in a situation where we could have, or depending on our mood, like we could just have like a theme playing like an Instagram story. So I always just kind of look at life through like a creative lens, and just kind of put myself in the position of the character and kind of, you know, take inspiration from scores that I've heard from other movies, or mix and match and say, okay, this will fit here. Maybe we can do something similar to, you know, what Hans did, or maybe take like the Doom soundtrack, but like twist it, change some
Yeah.
notes here or there, just to fit this specific character. That's how I always approach it, especially when I'm writing scripts. I always keep like the music also in the back of my mind too, which I'm sure is pretty standard in the industry anyway. But that's how I do it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
that was a fire answer, Will. Like,
Yeah.
That was.
okay.
nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that was going to be like sort of a follow-up question that for you guys too is like how does music play a part in that inspiration with you guys? Like do you tend to listen to music while you're like, maybe while you're editing or like while you're writing or even while you're just trying to like come up with ideas? What sort of inspiration do you guys pull from music? Because like as a musician, like I'm obviously on the other side of the fence, but I love to hear how music inspires other people. Like where does your mind go? When you hear this kind of music, where does it take your brain? Yeah, I would love to know like kind of what sort of music inspires you guys, or like what do you guys listen to when you need just kind of a creative jolt, as it were, a little espresso shot.
I dig that. For me, it depends on, as we were talking about earlier when it came to this subject, a lot of like the mood. So it's like if I'm studying for something, I probably won't have the most like hardcore of like big high energy music for that, but like some lo-fi like throwback RPG original soundtracks, whether it be Final Fantasy 9 or 7 or just Tactics, like all those like the throwback RPGs have like the craziest, most relaxing soundtracks to me. So like, I don't even play Persona personally, but I know the soundtrack. Like exactly, like
there,
you already know, and it's just like I still want to play the game badly, but I already know the soundtrack is heat, and I listen to that when I'm just chilling, or just reading, or just trying to take my mind off what's going on out here. Or like we said, if we're working out, it's probably more like energetic music. Like I'll probably have a Streets of Rage 2 soundtrack on my work playlist, or like even a Sonic 3, because it's like the fast pace, even like some Doom, like some like 90s heavy metal. I'm not even like a heavy metal stand by any regards, but like that Doom music, come on, forget about it. It makes you want to fight demons. So like
it does.
So like just depending on the mood, and it's just like as everybody else is inspired by it, and especially you, Shawn, but it's like I'm definitely inspired just by how different music can be, and just like the fact that you can create something that doesn't sound like something else is always going to be amazing to me, because it's so easy to be inspired to a T where it's just like, dang, this sounds just like this level from this video game, but it's like it's not. It's your creation. It might have some elements of something else, but you created this out of your knowledge base, out of your talent, and what inspired you. And I think that's beautiful. It's just creating something, man. Like, salute to you and everybody who does it, because making music is not easy. Like I tried making beats once and just ended up using like loops. I'm just like, the fact that y'all can like create almost like new instruments and make it sound like, manipulate the sound. That's so crazy. Like that sounds like a mutant gene, and I love it. It's like I can manipulate sound to make it sound funky.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Because
I appreciate that.
Yeah, most definitely. Because I couldn't imagine a life of video games without music, or movies without music. Like I know it's a certain niche of like movies, not silent movies, but like some movies don't have a score, and like that's part of the bit, that's part of the movie. But like most movies kind of need something in there besides the empty noise, and it's like it hits you in the emotions, it gets you hype, it makes you feel sad. So salute to everybody who does it, and I will always just love music, and especially video game music. Y'all got me rambling again, bro. Like,
no, you're good.
That inspires you, bro.
Yeah.
But now I can piggyback off of that too, because when I was in Miami, so I went to my undergraduate in Miami for 2 years at Florida International University. So I had to find some way to study, because I'm one of those types of people that I can't really study with large groups of people. So I have to find like my own little like corner somewhere, and then put on my I don't know, like Jolly Roger Bay from Super Mario 64,
Come
or
on.
something
Yeah.
like that. Just to like get my mind right,
Mhm.
and just to focus on whatever I need to focus on, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly cannot imagine my life without video game music or just music in general. It calms me, it soothes me, and it's therapeutic, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I can agree too with Willie. Like it's really difficult to try to make music, because I remember I tried to get into the whole garage band thing. And I was like, I tried to put something together and I was like, what is this? This is garbage. You know? But like, yeah, like salute to you guys, because like I just can't imagine just how difficult it is to do that process, you know, and then just to
Yeah.
connect with everyone in general, or just try to like come up with your own ideas,
Yeah.
like Willie said, to try to not make it sound like anybody else's, because that's difficult. It's hard.
Dude,
Because
yeah.
there's so many people out here in the world that have
Yeah.
similar, I don't know, sounds,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And I mean, like in Western music, like, yeah, that is a problem we run into often. You know, there's only 12 notes in a scale, you know, and there's only so many combinations that sound good, you know, within those 12 notes. And so it does happen. Like, I mean, I find myself all the time, like, you know, doing the like John Williams jump, we call it, you know, it's that dun dun. Like, you know, that's how Star Wars starts. Like, that's how like the theme from E.T. starts. It's like dun 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 dun. No, that's E.T. But then he goes dun 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 dun. So like, there's only so many things you can do that like sound good, and that's
Right.
like, the difficult part is figuring out like, okay, what can I surround it with, you know? But it is encouraging to know also that like a lot of composers, including John Williams, that I've studied and like talked to or, you know, gotten to see interviews with, they all struggle with the same thing, and they all worry about like, you know, they want to do their own thing but not copy someone else. But inevitably we're all going to like copy, you know, the people that are our heroes. Like I put all sorts of, like Hans Zimmer stuff. It's hard not to do like, you know, just some tubas on octaves just going bwom, something like, you have to. Or even with John Williams, like he admits there's some composers, you know, that weren't even like that far back in time that like he's straight up ripped off for like Star Wars and things like that. And so one thing I learned, like this is from a book called Steal Like an Artist, which if you're artists out there, I highly recommend is like some required reading, because it'll really help you snap out of any sort of like creative block. But one of the things he talks about is like, okay, if you steal from 10 people, because all artists steal at the end of the day, we're all collecting together experiences and like influences and everything. It's inevitable that at some point you're going to write something that sounds like one of your heroes. I know when I was like in high school, like, you know, rock band with my buddies, I had like spent all week, you know, working on this really crazy cool riff, and I was like, yeah, this is great, and I can't wait to show it to them. And I went to band practice and played it for them, and they're like, dude, that's just the intro to this Linkin Park song. Like, you just did it one for one. And I was like, no, why? But the cool thing is that, you know, like if you steal from 10 artists, people are immediately going to say like, you're just another Hans Zimmer, you're just another, you know, John Williams or whatever. But if you steal from 100 different sources, people will be like, oh man, dude, so original. But it's like, oh no, but I stole a little bit of this, I stole a little Grant Kirkhope, I stole a little Goldeneye over here, a little Hans Zimmer here, a little John Williams there. And then like all of a sudden they're like, no, Shawn, he's like the most original composer there ever was. I mean, at least I hope one day to be there, but you know, that's how those people become originals, is that they just learn from so many different sources and they're pulling from so many different backgrounds that suddenly you've found your voice. Like your voice is made up of 1,000 voices that inspire you. And I find that really beautiful. Like I've talked to people who are like just painters even too, and it's a similar sort of thing. You know, they're like, yeah, like I was inspired by this painting, you know, or this painter or this artist, but you know, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you know, like to a point where it becomes, you know, distinctly you. And that's what really makes an artist, I think, is when they get to that point and they figure out how to collect all of that together, in a way that's pleasing to people, you know, or that looks good or sounds good. I think filmmaking same deal, like there's certain ways that you can edit a film. There's certain ways you can, frame a shot, that gives homage to some of your heroes, but it's like more of a wink than a straight ripoff. Like, so yeah, no, like great topic to bring up, I think. Especially all of us being artists in one way or another. It's like, I know there's a lot of like imposter syndrome sometimes. I feel like, that maybe comes up where we're just like, oh man, am I really that good or not? Like, I don't know, like it's nice to have some affirmation too, like to hear from you guys, that's like, oh no, music is so good. Like, I don't know how you do it, I don't know how you guys do it with filmmaking, like even just a broad overview of like how films are made. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to storyboard or write, like if I sat at a typewriter, trying to come up with a script, I would be just stuck there for days, till I turned into a skeleton. But you guys are just plunking away out there, making short films, which is incredible. So yeah, kudos to you guys too.
Yeah. Well, appreciate that, man. I was just thinking too, just to kind of go back to the video game thing there, because you talked, well, I think we talked about it earlier and it popped back in my head. But I know video game, like we talked about, Sonic 3 and GoldenEye. Shawn, as a composer, like what do you think makes those so memorable? I know they're like, I mean, they're composed well.
Yeah.
But like, GoldenEye came out way back in the 90s, and here it is, 2025, and we still remember it and talk about it fondly. Like,
sure. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do some tracks, they get forgotten about, but some just live on in eternity, I guess?
Yeah, dude, that is a really good question. And it's one I often ponder as well. Is like, how do you make something memorable? And I remember working on this with Jason Graves too. That was one of the big things that he goes through, and like some of the techniques he uses. Like he said, it should be singable, should be hummable. If it's a tune that you can't get out of your head, or it's like easily remembered, that's a good starting point for a theme. And I know like a lot of cats, like especially the Japanese composers, have deep backgrounds into jazz music and R&B, which I think really gives you a great foundation with improvisation and like, chord structure and like really just constructing a good song, so they can just like play stuff out really easily. I'm mad jealous of people like that can just like play things through. I have to go through and like really like I'm not the best piano player, and that's kind of the vehicle that really makes things easy. Like you can play all your strings and all your instruments through piano, but I'm not the best piano player, so like I have to go through and like kind of manually add notes one at a time sometimes, because I'm not a jazz virtuoso like some of these crazy composers are. But I think like one of the things that's like major is being able to have a singable hook. Like it's just like songwriting elsewhere, like like for pop music it's the same thing. Like if you can sing the hook, like to Espresso, in your head, like if I mention that song or mention really kind of any song that ends up on the Billboard top 100 charts, they're all masters of like finding a singable hook. I think that's why those things stick in our heads so much, is because they do focus a bit on the hook, especially for like the main theme or whatever. But it's kind of funny too, because like Jason will go into, like he said, sometimes my technique is just taking the video game title and just turning that into the hook. Like that's will be the rhythm for my, he's like, so he wrote a hook for this game called Still Wakes the Deep. It's a story driven like horror game. And he said the main theme for that song, it kind of goes like dun 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 dun. He said that's just the title of the song. Still wakes the deep, still wakes the deep.
Oh wow.
I came up with. So there's like there's different techniques like that you can go through to like kind of help you get there. But I think it's like that's the biggest challenge probably, like, and the hardest thing to master, I think, with any sort of composing is like coming up with something that people will remember and that like kind of stick with people. And like kind of going back to a previous topic, like not sounding like someone else. You don't want to rewrite the Jurassic Park theme in your song, because people will be like, sounds like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're my buddy Gordy Hobb, who literally gets hired to sound like John Williams, like on the regular for, Jedi Survivor, Fallen Order. He just did the new Indiana Jones game. Like that's his niche. Is he's the John Williams guy when John Williams is not available. And he freaking nails it. Like you wouldn't, if you put the two next to each other, you wouldn't be able to tell because he's just so good.
My man.
But yeah, no, really, really good question.
Yeah, excellent. And now, just to kind of piggyback, but kind of transition a little bit there, because I know we just talked about Jedi Survivor. We were just talking about that on our last episode, and I believe Willie, you're starting to play that, and I know John, I think you also are starting to just play Jedi Survivor too. And it's crazy. I was just thinking about the theme of that game the other day. So that's wild, man. It's an incredible game. Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I just finished it myself. I just played through it like a couple weeks ago after starting it, a few times and getting stuck at the same puzzle. I'm not a big puzzle guy, so it's like hard for me to get past puzzle levels sometimes. But once I got past it, it was just like, oh man, I get the hype now. Like I get it now. Especially, the score is great too, but just like every aspect of that game, you can just feel the love that people worked on it. Like the level design is spectacular. The voice acting, how the players move, like and traverse, across the levels, like like everything. As a big nerd into like the game development process as well as music, like that game is like kind of one of the few like 10 out of 10s for me where like every bit just hits perfectly. So I'm glad. I want to hear about your experience with it so far too, because like it's just one of those games. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go first. I know Willie and John. I think they just started playing. I know Willie, you just beat Fallen Order, right?
Yeah, I jumped into Fallen Order late in the game. I just beat it and loved every second of it. Like the story, the gameplay, Cal, and the characters. And I've always been a fan of just more original Star Wars stories. When it comes to like the more recent Star Wars like shows and movies, like I just love when they just like take a segue from like the main characters, the Luke, the Skywalkers, the Leias, the people we know and love, of course, but like just some other Jedi, some standalone that we didn't know about in their own story, and like we might get some Easter eggs here and there, but it's not like all about Palpatine for once. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's like some Jedi who are not like fully Sith, but it's just like understand the ways of the Sith, but like are halfway through. I'm like, that's always interesting to me. So I love that story. I'm looking forward to Survivor, man. I can't wait to boot that up on my 5. So definitely looking forward to that. But I know JoJo just started. I know he's probably way farther than me. I haven't even installed the damn game. So I know JoJo, like, everybody in this room is definitely way ahead of me. But looking forward to it, man, for real.
Yeah, Jedi Survivor is definitely it's interesting. It's really interesting. At times, it kind of seems like an open world concept. But I just love the exploration of it all. I like the fact that there's a main story that you can do, but you can also go off and do your own little thing. And whatever. But I'm not even like halfway through. I'm at like 20%, I believe. But it's just fun overall. And I get so immersed in everything. And I'm a big Star Wars fan. So like Willie said, like when it comes to like original stories, these are the types of stories that I like in Star Wars. I'm more of the third person, exploration. It takes a long time before you can complete the story. And it just it leaves you in the mindset of you wanted to come back to the game. Like when I'm at work and then I come home, I'm like, I kind of want to play this right now. So I just pop it in, I play it for a couple of hours and then, I can just come back to it and not like be almost complete with the game, because there are some games out there that are very short, and this is not one of those types of games. But I also like the the score and the overall sound bites of everything. It's great. It's really great. So I'm looking forward to finishing it. But I definitely played through the first one, and the first one was great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have no cons about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same. Likewise.
Right. Hard to find.
Yeah. I love Star Wars too. So just echo off of what everybody else said. Those two games are incredible. Just gameplay, score, graphics, characters, character development. Loved every single minute of it. That first game, that final, well, it wasn't a fight, but when you see Darth Vader and you just gotta run from him, like, man,
yeah. My heart was pounding at that
thing.
Like, literally, my heart was in my throat, and I was like, "Oh, I have not had a visceral feeling like this, like of fear." About a character, especially a character I grew up watching. Like, I'm a huge Star Wars fan as well. Like, I was never really scared of Darth Vader, like in the early days. It's just like, he's a dude with an asthma problem. Like,
yeah.
Then between Rogue One, that ending scene of that movie, and then the end scene, in Jedi Fallen Order. Oh, I'm terrified of him now. Yeah, I have nightmares about him now.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I felt this. I'm glad everybody had the same visceral fear. I'm glad this is a safe space, right?
We're trauma bonding right now.
Exactly. Like, I remember I was telling Will and Jojo this. I was like, after struggling with old girl for like 50 times, after finally beating her, and then I have no health, used up all my little health chips. When I saw him and the health bar popped up, I instantly hit pause and jumped on Google, like, how to beat Darth Vader, because he can breathe on me and I'll die.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Unpause,
then you just read one line and it just says "run."
It's funny when the game is like, you cannot beat him. Just go. Just go.
Oh, dude, yeah, I felt like a mouse being chased by a cat at that moment. Just like, scrambling. Dude, yeah. Kudos to whoever like was overseeing that whole scene in that game. Like, job well done. You did it.
Absolutely. And then just to add to that trauma, I told the audience this a while back too, but it's a funny short story, Shawn, where I don't know if you ever had the chance before they closed down. This was before the pandemic. It was this virtual reality company called The Void. And they had like this whole thing where you wear like this suit, you feel everything, and you go through these physical environments, like you can touch everything. But I did like this Star Wars one, and it was based off of Rogue One.
Oh,
so it's all incredible VR. I'm feeling it. I smell it. I touch it. And so I'm the only one in the store doing this because, again, this is like right when the pandemic hit. So I was the only one crazy enough to go in. But I was going through solving the puzzles, and I get to the very end, and like there is a virtual reality Darth Vader, but like you feel the heat from the lightsaber in your face, and he's like chasing you, and you feel it through the suit. I'm feeling the heat, and I'm like feeling this guy just breathing down my neck, and I'm like, how don't you like? And he's like moving fast, and I'm like, dude, like it was like the most terrifying. And it's this dark room. It was just the most terrifying thing I ever experienced.
Yeah, that would give me literal nightmares. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course the score is going on, like the Imperial March theme is going on. And I'm like, what is going on? What is happening right now?
Holy moly. I can't imagine. I'm surprised that form of entertainment isn't more popular, because I feel like
I know.
I would maybe only do it once. Being chased by Darth Vader in virtual space is a terrifying prospect. But yeah, I would want to still do it at least once, to say it, like, especially like you were talking about, feeling the heat, and you could like hear him breathing behind you. Like, yeah,
you feel like when he was pulling me with the force, like the suit that I was wearing was like pulling me back to stay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Crazy. That's incredible, man.
It was incredible. I'm sad that company, they didn't make it through the pandemic, but man, that was incredible VR.
Yeah, man. So as far as entertainment goes, like in the future, like I mean, we have these like 4D theaters now, they like spray water in your face and they move the like chairs around and all that stuff. Like in your guys' space, like how do you see, or how would you want VR to be implemented? Like in your realm, like in filmmaking, like do you think that would like help with like storytelling? Um, or do you think like it would be, just seen as maybe another gimmick or something, and people still want to like just sit and just watch a film in front of a screen? Like, do you think that would like add more to your stories, or um, yeah, kind of a vague question, sorry, but no, I'm interested to hear of like your perspective, because I know in video games, like you were talking about, like the VR space is still kind of like trying to get a foothold, and it's like not quite getting there, but I think we're waiting for that like Ready Player One experience, like where people actually get to inhabit the story.
Hmm.
So like what would you guys think about like, writing a film where like you're writing it for the purpose of the person who's experiencing it in VR is a part of that story with you. It's kind of writing the story alongside you, I guess.
Yeah, I think in terms of VR and like filmmaking in particular, I think it has a lot of potential. Kind of like how um, Avatar kind of it didn't reinvent 3D, but it kind of put it back in the forefront of filmmaking with like the first film that came out in 2009. I feel like and like you mentioned those 4D movie theaters that like spray water. I feel like it could really make the story, depending on what the movie is, of course, as well. It could
Yeah.
really capture the audience attention, really bring them into a scene. Like I always thought it would be really cool, like for example, a horror movie where you feel like you're in watching like Alien Romulus or something.
Oh,
Feel
yeah.
like you feel the xenomorph like right there, or you feel
Yeah.
like the acid coming towards you. So I feel like that can evoke some really good emotions and like really enhance the storytelling just
Yeah.
across the board in like the film industry. And I really do hope like going forward that we can reach the point where even in gaming too, I think like, a reality where, Ready Player One is real could, change the game. Like that VR that I did a couple years ago was very close to, what that movie portrayed. And
Mhm.
so I'm thinking, in terms of both video games and film,
Yeah.
I don't see like a real big negative. I just think VR would be, something that could enhance both, because both are just art forms that tell, that are involved in storytelling.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a benefit.
Totally. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, like, especially coming from like a sound design, like music perspective too, like that's been like something really fun to play around with, like being able to put things in a virtual space that people get to experience, and the sound and the music change based on what somebody is doing. It's a really fascinating concept, and it's like a completely different approach to writing as well, because like you have to write something instead of writing to a scene, for a particular moment. You're having to write more for experiences, as like Jason put it, like in one of our classes. Yeah, so that was something fun to learn, but also like it's a real challenge sometimes too, because like you have to, you could have a player being in that one level, on Mario for hours and hours, just like going around like looking for all the stars, or looking for all the coins, and trying to get all the collectibles. So you have to have music that, inspires and, captures the imagination, but doesn't really like take over the scene either. And it's just like cool with being in the background. So, yeah, that's going back to kind of what you were talking about, like what are some of the challenges. I think that's like another big challenge too when it comes to like writing for video games, is figuring out like how do I, get my message across, or get the feeling across that I'm trying to in this scene or this level, without beating the player over the head with it, first of all, um, and just kind of like but being able to inform their emotions, for that scene. Because if I'm writing something, wacky for an action scene, like it's like it's going to take them out of the moment. Um, so yeah.
Yeah,
um, yeah.
and cool, man. Another question that I had for you too. I know you mentioned that like creating music for film and video games is different. Like for example,
Mhm.
does video game like the industry? Did they give you more leeway with like how you compose music, or is it like a tighter
Yeah.
deadline, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's totally different. So like I know in film and film, you're definitely coming in at the very end of the project. The edit is usually by then locked in, some of the effects might not be fully fleshed out, but that's kind of half the fun for me too, like getting to see the movies before they're fully finished. It's like, oh yeah, that's gonna look really cool. Seeing Johnny Depp and I forget the other guy in the movie. It was Pirates of the Caribbean 5, I think, swinging at a shark,
Yeah.
and it's just not there. You're just seeing a guy with a tennis ball kind of like prodding at them, giving them something to swing at. But so like that, when you come in on a film, you're right there at the end. They've already spent millions of dollars in marketing, on the movie, and so they're like, no, you need to like go. You have 6 weeks, or sometimes I've heard of composers, leaving the project because they weren't just like a good fit, and they bring in a new composer and they're like, cool, you have 3 weeks to come up with 2 hours of music. Good luck. We'll see you like at the end of the 3 weeks, and the composer's like, like, how do I do this? So nice part with video games is like you're a little more a part of the process as the game is being made, which is nice. You're not there for the very beginning. Sometimes you are, but typically, yeah, you do have like a lot more time to like work on things and really have a lot more back and forth with the game director or the game designer, and really talk about like, okay, here's what we're trying to go for in this scene, or like, here's kind of the vibes we're going for, what kind of music we want. So you get a lot more time to experiment, which is really nice. But then the flip side of it is that, you will be working on some music, you get it done for this scene, and they're like, cool, you're not hired anymore for the next however many months. We have to catch up now and like work on the next part of the game or like the next scene, and then we'll come back to you when we're ready. So you kind of have to do a bit of a juggling act sometimes, like to stay employed, where you might be working on several different projects at once, just because that's what it takes, to keep paying the bills. So that can get a little tricky sometimes because you'll be working on, one really happy cutesy wootsy, like, anime story game over here, like cute anime girl, like storytelling game. And then like, deep actiony Doom style shooter on the other side. And you're having to bounce back and forth between those two projects. And it can be a little whiplashy sometimes where you're like, oh, cool. I just spent all this time, learning some like, sweet sounding jazz chords, so it sounds really nice in the background. The storytelling game, now I have to pull out the guitar and like get my metal chops back up again to work on this like Doom-esque, like in your face, like explodey, run and gun shooter game. So that can be a little tough. Like, whereas in film, you're working on the one project, you're staying in that same, you're just in your lane, working for 3 weeks on it, and then you're done. It's put away off the shelf onto the next project. So yeah, that's sort of like a little bit of the challenge, but I also kind of find a lot of fun in that with video games too. Like the fact that you do get to like do all sorts of kind of genres, and people are very open to you bringing your own ideas to the table and kind of working with you along the way, which is really helpful. Whereas film, they're a little more locked in on like, no, we have this particular sound we're going for. We want it to sound just like this. Not a lot of leeway to kind of experiment with it, which is why I appreciate people like Gareth Edwards and Guy Ritchie hiring composers that are like, and basically letting them like, no, go nuts with it. Like, you want to do like, oh, we're doing a new King Arthur movie, but it's going to be like kind of Cockney inspired, and like, yeah, go for some rock and roll in there. Like, get weird with it, man. Like, have some fun. So video game people, they're a lot more like, on the level as far as like, no, get weird with it. Like, I want to see what you could come up with. So I do appreciate that with video games. It's much more varied than film and television. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Keeps you on your toes, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Another fun question here. This is kind of like off the riff. This is something me and the guys were talking about actually earlier this week. So July, just to talk about movies for a minute.
Yeah.
It's 3 big movies coming out in July. We got Fantastic Four, Superman, and Jurassic Park. Any one of those like
dude.
has you more excited than other or all three? I'm all three. I'm gonna be there day one, but
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, I'm just excited that there's because it's been tough ever since the COVID days, to like feel inspired to go back to the movie theaters to watch movies, especially with some of the like ticket prices. But all three of those, I will be there like day one opening weekend to see them. I think leaning maybe a little more towards the new Jurassic Park because like I was a big dinosaur kid growing up. Like I used to know like all the dinosaurs by heart. Like I could, someone could point to a picture of a dinosaur, but yeah, that's an apatosaurus. Like, um, so I loved Jurassic Park. I probably saw it a little too young. I think my dad showed me the first Jurassic Park when I was like 4, and
mm,
it kind of traumatized me a little bit, but I didn't, make me leave my love of dinosaurs. So, and I've loved all the Jurassic Park movies, even the ones that were kind of stinkers that,
yeah,
people didn't dislike because I'm just happy there's more Jurassic Park. Like
yeah,
I just love seeing dinosaurs and chasing around people and just yeah, they're great fun. But the new one looks incredible. I just saw the trailer for it the other day.
yeah,
I'm really excited that they're kind of going back to the OG island, and it's like a new
right.
cast. Yeah, new director. So yeah, what are your thoughts on it? Like, or what are you most looking forward to?
Willie and John, I know y'all had some
Yeah.
opinions about those early.
The well, just like y'all, I'm so excited for the new Jurassic Park to actually go back to his roots from the trailer, at least. Like I know they know how to make a great trailer, and the movie's the complete opposite. But I'm coming in with good expectations. I hope they learn from the most recent, as Sean said. Like I didn't really care about these more recent sequels. Just like all right, like y'all had me with the first sequel with Chris Pratt. I was like, y'all can do something with this, and then it just turned into like nonsense. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh come on, just like if I'm happy they're going back to the OG island. I hope they just like I hope we get some of like the book elements of which like it's truly like a horror film with dinosaurs. Like that first Jurassic Park. Same here. I saw that way too young, but it's like dinosaurs. Yeah, I love Littlefoot and the Land Before Time. Why wouldn't I love
Yeah.
Jurassic Park?
Oh
Oh
man.
my god, the sharp tooth is
Mm,
losing his damn mind. But
Yeah,
like,
right.
but yeah, it's like even seeing it as a young age. Of course, I love horror now, but like I love the Jurassic Park movies. Even like the original trilogy. Like I know the third one wasn't the best, but it was good to see like the OG cast again, even the sequel. But it's like I truly hope we get real like horror elements in this because at the end of the day, like I know we've lost like the true fear of like
Mm,
monsters, prehistoric beasts and whatnot. We glamorize them and all that.
yeah.
But like dinosaurs are scary. As cool as they are, it's like these creatures are like as tall as skyscrapers and just have way too many teeth and just natural apex predators. And it's just
Yeah.
like if we didn't have weapons, that would even with weapons, it's like sitting here with a
Right.
gun is not gonna help me from a velociraptor. Like that scene in the sequel when they're running in the brush and all you can see is the trails of like the raptors enclosing on them.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Mhm.
I'm like, so I'm looking forward to that if it comes back to the OG style of horror. I
Yeah.
can't wait for Captain America. Like, that's gonna be amazing. They're so sick for dropping that on Valentine's Day. Like now I'm gonna have to force my fiance to come make that be our Valentine's Day. It's like, well, I got a
yeah.
surprise for you.
Yep. The real
So
ones for that one. Yeah.
right.
Doing you a solid.
So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that and can't wait for oh man, Superman and Fantastic Four. Like
Mm,
Will said, that's gonna be a crazy month in
Yeah.
itself. So it's so far trailer wise, it's a good year. I'm looking forward to everything. It looks like Marvel's getting back in their bag and not just
Yep.
like giving us a lot of just shows and movies at the same time. It's just like I know that attrition was hitting a lot of people, but it seems like they took their time with Fantastic Four and DC as of recent has been killing it. Like I
Yeah.
got nothing but love for James Gunn. Like he's
I was
always
gonna
been,
say
you know what
all
I'm
his
saying? Like,
fault. Yeah.
exactly. Like dude
Yeah.
has always been goated. So I'm looking forward to that. I just finished Creature Commandos, so I
Yeah.
can't. Great show. Like everything James Gunn touches, essentially, like since like the Slither days and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, he's
mm,
Yeah.
always been like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to everything, man. Can't even lie to you. Like big fingers crossed for Jurassic Park. I'm hoping they do their thing with this one.
Right. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
I'm
think we
hyped.
owe a lot in the fandom to Jon Favreau and James Gunn for what they've done.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definite. Big salute to them.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm hyped too about everything that's coming out. It seems like 2025 is going to be the year of movies.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But yeah, looking at that trailer for Jurassic Park, I mean, I was a little bit like excited, but also I'm a little bit like, let's look a little bit corny from the trailers a little bit, but let's see how this goes. Because I I got into reading the Michael Crichton Jurassic Park books,
Yeah.
and it's just I don't know. When it comes to Jurassic Park, I want to see like more like I guess gore is the right terminology for it because it's like how do you not put gore with dinosaurs like I don't know, so but at the same time I understand the fact that like you're trying to make it like kid friendly
Yeah.
somewhat, someone and so on and so forth. But it would be nice to have some of that in the new
Mhm.
Jurassic Park movies.
Yeah.
Because it was a little bit lackluster within the new sequels that came out. But I have high hopes.
Yeah.
But I'll still be seated. I'll still watch it, because it's been a long time since I've seen a Jurassic Park movie in theaters. So why not?
Yeah. Right.
um, with Superman, I'm more excited for Superman than Fantastic Four, given Fantastic Four's track record in the past.
Yeah.
But like I said, I have high hopes for everything. So let's just see how it all plays out.
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So, but I'm a big movie guy, so I'm still gonna watch it regardless. So
Nice. Yeah. Likewise.
Absolutely. And I know there's a lot of audience members. You guys may have seen it as well on Blue Sky Twitter, but I will stand on this hill that the things designed in the new trailer is comic accurate, and I will die on that hill. I don't
Yeah.
know what you guys are thinking about. Like, I don't know what the big issue. I'm like, that's perfect. The thing he's right from the comics. Like, what do you guys?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Got the rocky eyebrows and everything. Like just
yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
I mean, probably the most comic accurate Fantastic Four movie to date, I would say. So I'm excited for everything. I think this is going to be a great year just for movies and filmmaking in general. And then in terms of just everything else, man, I'm just excited.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, like, looking back on like the last couple of years, what have been some of your standout movies so far that have like kind of kind of broken the mold for you, as it were, or maybe even surprised you? Like I know for me, like Alien Romulus, like I was kind of expecting maybe it was like, oh, I kind of went into it with some trepidation, and then I got into it. I was like, oh, dang, like they got back to the OGs on some of this stuff. Like I felt like it was like the OG Alien film, like they kind of got back to its roots a little more, and I really enjoyed that one. But yeah, I would love to know like kind of what you guys thought of like the last couple of years of movies, like if anything has like grabbed your attention in the sea of like stuff that's come out in recent times.
Yeah, excellent question, Willie.
Yeah, that is definitely a great question. That's like you, Alien Romulus was high on my list without a doubt. I saw that several times, and just as you said, just going back, just like how we're saying, we're going back to Jurassic Park. Like, I just love when they're going back to the roots, and it's not just like heavy Easter eggs or like cameos. Just like, yeah, this happened, and this is part of the timeline, but we're also doing our own thing in between timelines, which is always a blast for me. And just like JoJo said, like Jurassic Park, I miss like when there was a bit more gore in it because it is a dinosaur movie. Just like with Aliens, it's like it's iconic. The chest buster scene, like that's essentially what like the people who aren't hardcore fans, like I guess normies, if you say when you say Alien, that's the scene they think of, and it's like the sheer shock of everybody around them because they didn't know that was going to happen. Like, I miss that when it comes to movie making. It's just like the actors don't know everything that's happening, and you get the true visceral fear on their faces. Like, yo, what did I just witness? Is this actor okay in real life? Like, Like that's amazing that they had no clue about that. And just Romulus, man, they truly made the aliens vicious and scary again. Like
Yeah.
the face huggers crawling around, moving like huge tarantulas. I was like, this is nuts. It was like watching the Arachnophobia movie. I was like, this is really crazy. And please get out of that. Please get out of that. Like, just the gore and just like, and I love the was he the producer or the director? Fede Alvarez was
Director.
The director. Appreciate you. Yeah, I love that director because, as I said, huge horror film buff. The Evil Dead 2013 remake is one of my. It's probably my favorite Evil Dead when it comes to the remakes because I love Rise, but the 2013 Evil Dead was just on a different level of just brutality, and it was just like watching Mortal Kombat in the most horrific way because I was like, it's been a while since you went seeing something in a movie. And I'm like, oh, I gotta look away for a second. Like, so I love that about Alien Romulus. Another movie, I'm trying to think. I know A24 has been killing it with just the creativity in their movies, like Dream Scenario and things like that. I just love how different they are when it comes to their movies, even their horror films, of course. But like Dream Scenario was something that was great to watch. I love Long Legs. That was a nice horror film. Nick Cage always being Nick Cage, but like in his most terrifying role. I'm like, it's like crazy Nick Cage. It's like Face Off, but we made him into like a Hannibal Lecter ghost looking character. I'm like, yeah, this is terrifying. Like,
right.
Ridiculous. So like those definitely come to mind. I know I'm missing a bunch, but off the top of my head, definitely Alien Romulus, Long Legs, A Dream Scenario, a couple more A24. Tuesday from A24 was a nice one. And can't think of any others right now, but that's probably my list.
Yeah, good choices.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I think for me, even though I had like high expectations that this movie was going to do great, I think Smile 2 definitely made my jaw drop. I thoroughly enjoyed the first one, and I think they just like took it a whole different level with the second one, with all the elements and the horror aspects of everything. Like it just gave me chills. Another one that took me by surprise, honestly, last year was I don't know if you guys ever watched Juror Number 2. Have y'all seen that?
No.
Yeah. Juror Number 2 is about like this guy who was supposed to be like on jury duty, and he's trying to basically manipulate everybody in their decision making abilities. Yeah. Because he was the one that he's starting to like put the pieces together about the night that whatever happened in court. And he was like, oh, wait, that was me. I was the one that actually did it. So he's trying to like manipulate everyone's mind into thinking that, it was like the other person's like not guilty, So it's a big like I guess confusion for everyone in the movie, but like it was really good. It really like put you in his mind, but that was one of those movies that just took me by surprise last year. But I would definitely say that Smile 2 was probably my top pick for 2024. Definitely.
Nice. Yeah.
Excellent. I would have to agree with Willie and John. Those movies that they mentioned were definitely on my list. But I'll add Doom Part 2 last year really blew me away. Like, I know. I saw Doom Part 1. I thought the movie was good, but I thought it was a little bit too exposition heavy. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like Part 2. Saw Part 2 last year, opening weekend in IMAX in a sold out theater.
Oh, man.
It was a rare movie where I just felt like I knew I experienced something special with that movie. because like I was just thinking about it on the drive home from the theater. I was like Googling things. Like I wasn't like super familiar with Dune before the movies came out. So like it really made me go back and start reading the books and like getting more learning about the lore. So like I was just like obsessed for like 2 or 3 weeks after I saw the movie. So that movie really surprised me. I was like, I get it now. I see why so many people love Dune.
Mhm.
And then what else? Like y'all said, Alien Romulus. Like I was like, the Alien movies are kind of like they had kind of gone downhill in quality. I was
Yeah.
like, I'll check it out. And then I saw it in theaters. Well, actually, Willie kind of got me more hyped because he saw it like the day before I saw it. He was like, "You got to go see it." um, and so I did, and I was like, I was really blown away. And I'm like, yes, Alien movies are back. I'm really excited to see what they do going forward. And I love the little Easter eggs to the 2014 video game that they threw into
Yeah.
Alien Romulus too. That was pretty cool. And then what else? It was one other movie that I thought was really good, but nobody saw it. I really loved. Well, people saw it, but it didn't do that great at the box office. Was Abigail came out last year. I know me and Willie are big fans of that, and I'm sad we
Yes.
probably won't get a sequel.
Shook.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Such a good
Um,
movie.
yeah, it was great. And then also The Fall Guy. I love that too, but again, didn't do great at the box office, but it was a great movie, especially if you love just kind of like the behind the scenes stuff about filmmaking too. So I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty great.
Yeah, right. Giving homage to all the stunt dudes
Yeah,
put their lives on the line for everything.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Man, yeah, good answers. For me it was I saw Civil War. You know, speaking of A24, like I was
Yeah,
kind of interested to see how they would do on a bigger budget production, and like I kind of went into it blind, and like I think that was one that, you know, they obviously marketed it trying to get more people into it, and a lot of people came away disappointed thinking it was going to be this like big, you know, boombastic like Michael Bay kind of like actiony explosion-y thing. But I was really kind of glad actually that they took it in the direction that they did, you know, especially with such a kind of, you know, on the nose topic that's going on, you know, um in the zeitgeist right now. So like seeing it as like, oh, you know, I didn't expect them to take this take on it of like doing it more like a war journalist like documentary kind of, you know, and like really being careful to like not name, you know, what side is what, is just like this is just the consequences of war, you know, that have happened around the world, but seeing it in a, you know, a place in a setting and a scenario that's like so familiar to us, really like one of those movies that I came away that was like, ooh, like had a lot to think about. So that one, yeah, definitely impacted me a bit. But not last year, but like kind of more recent, as far as like horror films go, like Barbarian was one again that I kind of went into blind, not really expecting it to be the film that it ended up being. Like that was a really fascinating like twist and turn in that one. So yeah, I mean, it's tough. There's so many good movies out there. It's
it
almost
really
difficult to
is.
keep up with
Yeah,
them. But yeah, I'm really excited, like along with you guys for this year, like with all the stuff that's coming up. It really feels like, you know, yet another like year of the superhero. You know, we get so many cool superhero movies, you know, and like superhero content coming up this year. So I'm really excited about that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, guys. I mean, I think this has been
Yep.
an amazing episode. Um, Shawn, we really thank you for being a guest on the show. We really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Likewise.
any of your friends that want to be on the episode in the future, we'd love to have them chat. This was just a fun time.
Oh yeah, no, I 100% will be recommending your podcast to everyone I know. And yeah, if you need more guests, like I know some really cool people that would absolutely love to meet you guys and talk nerdy with you. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well,
yeah.
thanks again. Listeners, y'all know where to find us. We're on Twitter. Well, we are on Twitter X, but we're more active on Bluesky. So follow us there. We're on TikTok. We do have a page there. If you can still download the app, that is. But yeah, we just thank you guys for the support. And we will see you in the next episode.